Here's a snapshot of the economy right now under President Obama. June unemployment stood at 7.6%. That's below the rate when President Obama came into office. And the percentage of American workers who are either unemployed or underemployed has been above 13.8% for the last 54 months. That's the longest stretch since they began keeping track of that statistic. The median income in America has dropped more than 7% over the course of President Obama's tenure. It's down to $51,500.
So how exactly has our economy changed over the last 4 years? Here are figures now from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis and the Treasury Department. GDP, a leading indicator of how well the economy is doing, has grown at an annual rate of $1.9 trillion since 2008. In that time, the U.S. has added about $6 trillion in debt, which means that for every dollar added to the economy, more than $3 has been added to our national debt.
And this isn't the first time that the administration has tried to refocus their direction on jobs and put it squarely on economic growth. As Wendell said, there have been a number of distractions over the last several months. But the president on Monday told supporters that he hopes that this time it will be different. Listen.
Here's the thing. It'll be a pretty good speech. But as we've learned, I've given some pretty good speeches before. And then things still get stuck here in Washington.
Good speeches, and then things get stuck, according to the president. He says that's the problem. Mark Thiessen joins me now, fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and former chief speechwriter for President Bush, and the author of the book, Courting Disaster. Mark, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Good to be with you.
I was struck by what the president said there, sort of jokingly, because we all got the same email from Dan Pfeiffer. This is something different. The president is about to do something really big here this week, right?
Uh-huh. And then they also said that he's not going to say anything new. I mean, I was a White House speechwriter for 5 years, and I don't recall ever bragging that we weren't going to say anything new in a speech. That's sort of admitting you're out of new ideas is kind of a novel approach to presidential communications. But look, the president, this is like the 10th time that the president has pivoted to jobs. By definition, if you're pivoting, it means you're focused on something else. So, the president said in those remarks you just, later on in those remarks you just quoted, that he's really looking forward to this speech because it gives us a chance to refocus on the one thing that the American people sent him to Washington to do. That's a stunning admission. Why does the president need to refocus on the one thing that Americans sent him to Washington to do? And the numbers you put up at the start of the segment tell the story. We've got the worst economic recovery in American history. We just found out, by the way, recently that 3/4 of the American people, an all-time high, are living from paycheck to paycheck. We've got 20 million people who either are out of work or have given up looking for work, and we're not going to get back to full employment until after the president leaves office. That's the state. That's what you get when you don't focus on the number one thing that people sent you to Washington to do.
Well, we heard from Jay Carney, and we don't need to play it, but basically he said what you're going to hear. We're guilty of a theme here. You're going to hear at Galesburg what you heard at Knox, what you heard at Osawatomie in all of these speeches. So you go back and you look at what was said in those speeches, and basically it's the theme of education and training and tax changes. He says the country succeeds when everybody gets a fair shot, everybody does their fair share, and everybody plays by the same rules. So the way that I would, interpret that, and tell me what you think, everybody gets a fair shot is education, everybody gets a fair share is increased taxes for the wealthy, which the president's been very clear on, and, the same rules, I guess, is regulation?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, it's the same theme from the very beginning. I mean, basically what it comes down to is his approach to job creation is stimulus spending. So we've had, since he came into office, $1.7 trillion in stimulus spending. This is the largest amount of stimulus spending this country has ever experienced in its history. And we are 66 months into the supposed recovery, and we're still down 2.2 million jobs. The stimulus government, big government spending approach is not working. And
but
on
Mark,
top of that,
don't you think that, obviously the president must be frustrated by these numbers. This is his job. He wants the numbers to improve. So why not come out and say what seemed to be suggested at the beginning of that email from Dan Pfeiffer, that we're going to try something different?
Well, exactly. Well, I mean, what could he be doing differently? I mean, think about this. Let's say the president said in his speech today, I'm going to go out and call on Congress to pass legislation that will punish any American business that hires more workers. that any American business that hires a 50th worker is going to get massive penalties. If you move people into part-time employment out of full-time jobs and keep workers at 49 or below, we'll reward you. If you go above 50 full-time workers more than 30 hours, we're going to punish you. People would say he's crazy. That's what he did with Obamacare. That's why we're seeing these staggering numbers right now, is because we actually tell businesses, if you have more than 49 full-time workers, which they define as more than 30 hours a week, we're going to impose massive penalties.
So
they're not hiring the 50th worker, and they're moving people down to below 29 hours. So not only are we not doing things to create jobs, we're killing jobs.
We've definitely heard that from businesses, and we've heard it from the unions as well, which is really remarkable on that front. Mark, thank you very much. Always good to